Margaret Montague, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am doing well this morning. How are you, Rich?
Great. I had a great sleep last night. Woke up, coffee came out perfect this morning, and I'm fired up. I'm ready to have you on the show and talk financials.
Awesome. So happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about you, your practice, where are you located, and who do you help?
My name is Margaret Montague. Most people call me Maggie. I am originally from Florida, Tampa, Florida to be specific. Go 813. Um, and then recently, about almost a year now, my family and I relocated from Florida to Las Vegas. So totally went cross country and decided to kind of have the practice open on both coasts. So primarily we help small business owners, specifically beauty professionals and therapists, our main two people that we work with bookkeeping, tax preparation, and advisory.
Wow. How long have you all been in business?
So January 1st actually made 6 years. So New Year's has like a different meaning for me. It's like New
Wow.
Year's, but also Secured Financial's birthday. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
And you're the founder, correct?
Yes. So
Wow. How did you kind of stumble onto, or I say stumbling like it was an accident. Like how did you get into this space?
So believe it or not, I actually started as a senior in high school. A senior in high school, I kind of already knew that I wanted to be in the finance space. I had a friend whose sister was a CPA, and she was like, "My sister's looking for an intern," and I said, "Well, sign me up." So
Let's go.
after school, I was over there until the office closed, 5, 6 o'clock. I spent a couple hours after school every Saturday as their bookkeeping intern. So I learned bookkeeping straight out the gate, working with QuickBooks right as a senior in high school.
That's super cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So like what population did you start with? Was it the beauty profession or was it the therapist?
No, no. So that particular practice was really heavy on nonprofits. So
Oh.
I did a lot of nonprofit work.
Mm.
And there were some small mom and pop like retail stores
Yeah.
that the CPA, she had a heart for and was helping them. So of course, naturally, I helped them too. But that's the space that I started in.
Wow, that's really cool. And what motivated you to kind of transition over to therapist?
They found me is what I like to say.
Wow.
But I think it's quite honestly a personality and
Mm.
education style match is how it ended up working. I'm very education forward. I feel like if you're going
Mm.
to finances is already such a big broad topic, and with social media there's so much information. It's like
Mhm.
what's right, what's wrong. So I really like to take the time to explain things, make sure that you know what you're signing for, why we're doing something a certain way.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you have to be empowered, as a business owner to really
Mhm.
know those things. So I think that style of communication and how I work really makes therapists feel safe in this
Mhm.
space. And so that's why we've been able to grow and really focus on them.
Wow, that's so cool. I wonder, as the clinicians that you worked with over time, show up and ask for your services and stuff like that. What are kind of some of the trends that you're seeing with our population?
To be honest, to be very
Yeah.
frank,
Yeah, yeah.
I have noticed that it is taking them a little bit longer than I think is appropriate to reach out and
Mm,
ask these questions.
mm,
I've uncovered from a lot of the conversations that it's like,
mhm.
well, I didn't know that I needed to know this, or I didn't even know that that type of thing was finance related, even.
Wow.
So my main message, I would say,
Mhm,
specifically, I would, even within our meeting today, is to reach out and be proactive about
mhm,
things.
mhm. Yeah, what do you think is holding them back from reaching out sooner?
Fear, most definitely fear.
Yeah.
Um, when I say the words IRS,
Mhm.
I think most people get clammy.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you're a therapist or not,
Mhm,
people are like, "Oh, IRS, I don't want to play with those people. I don't want
mhm.
to go to jail." That's always the rhetoric that I hear. I don't want to
Yeah.
play with them. So it's the same with therapists. They're
Mhm.
in new territory, especially if they used to work for a group practice. Now they're branching out on their own. It's
Yeah.
a lot of newness, and with newness, you're just trying to get through it most of the
Oh,
time.
yeah.
You're bootstrapping. You're trying to figure things
Mhm,
out. So you're just trying to get things done. And finances can easily be an afterthought because it only comes up for the most part when taxes are due,
yeah.
or there's a deadline, or you
Mhm,
get a letter in the mail, so now it becomes urgent.
mhm.
Whereas I encourage you to be more proactive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder at what point does this kind of idea of like, I'll deal with it later. I mean, it's not really for me. I don't really need that. All these things that, clinicians can probably tell themselves. At what point does it actually start costing like real money? you
The
know?
first time you file taxes.
Mm,
Believe it or not, when I have most of the time when clinicians come to me, they have already been in practice, so I'm not filing the very first business return.
mm,
And when we're reviewing the business return that they've done in the previous years, I've
mhm.
already identified $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 worth of deductions that were missed.
Oh, dang.
So right out the gate, there's a lot
Mhm,
of missed things that you wouldn't know really unless you speak
mhm,
to a professional, or you're stalking the IRS website like I do, which
mhm.
who has time for that, right? That's what I get
Yeah.
paid to do. You get paid to do something totally different. So really it's in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you see a lot of the clinicians that are missing out on those deductions from like the past year's tax returns? Are those like the DIYers, or are they the ones that are also going to other professionals who may not be as qualified, maybe, or as like knowledgeable as maybe you and your team? What do you think?
I would say it's more like 80-20. 80% DIY, I can find
Mm,
something.
yeah.
A lot of times too, there's also a misconception that like if I use a software that asks me questions, I'm not doing it myself. And the reality
Mm,
is you are still doing it yourself, because you may not really understand what they're asking you or why they're asking you those questions that you're answering, and you miss something there.
mm,
The other 20% I would say is other professionals who just may not be in tune with how private practices work, how group
mhm.
practices work. However, it's mainly the DIYs.
The DIYs that miss out on those deductions. Now,
Yeah.
how far into the past can you go back and maybe like amend? I don't know if that's the right word, like
Yeah.
their forms and see if they can get some of that money, or is there like a limit where it's like, hey, more than 2 years, like you can't go back and make any more claims? How does that look?
So it really depends on whether they owed or they were looking to get a refund. So
Mm,
after 3 years, if you were looking to get a refund, you forfeit a refund after 3 years. So if
okay,
it was a refund and we're trying to get even more money, we can only go back 3 years. Now,
got it.
if it is they owed and we're trying to reduce that bill, kind of comes out of tax preparation lane and it's more into tax resolution lane, which there's so many different caveats because when you filed makes a difference of whether we should amend. There's a lot of just different little nuance pieces. The short answer
Mm,
is you can pretty much fix anything,
yeah.
as long as we have the overall picture of what we're trying to accomplish.
Wow. Yeah. So 3 years, and then, but still, there's probably like we can still kind of work on some stuff
Yeah,
as long as
for
it's not a
sure.
refund after 3 years.
Right.
Got it. That makes sense. You mentioned fear, Margaret, earlier about how that can hold a lot of clinicians back from reaching out to a professional like you. What are they afraid of? Like when they're the DIYer, they're doing it themselves. Like what are they afraid of in those moments to reach out to a pro
The
instead of
cost. Imma just call it.
yeah.
It's the cost.
Hmm.
I'm a professional, you're a professional. We have licenses, we have
Hmm.
continuing educations that we both have to go through. There's
Yeah.
so many of that. So in their mind, if I'm reaching out to a professional, professionals cost.
Hmm.
That is absolutely true. We're both in the line of
Yeah.
work to get paid. However, it might be more beneficial for you to pay a consultation fee or jump on a quick discovery call to see if you even need,
Hmm.
the services that you think you need, um, to save you in the long run,
Yeah.
to get
Absolutely.
that pertinent information from the beginning.
Yeah. Margaret, do you find that when clinicians reach out to you and they're like, "Hey, I don't know if I need this. I'm just kind of trying to cover my bases here." Do
Yeah,
they kind of stay with y'all longer? Like, are they like, "Hey, I trust them. Like, they're good to go.
for sure.
It was worth the money."
For sure. Our retention rate is about 90%,
Wow.
and that's across all services. So,
Hmm.
if you're a tax client, there's a possibility that you might go somewhere else.
Hmm.
But for therapists specifically, I would say our retention rate with therapists it's more like 97. Most of the therapists that have started with me, I've seen their growth throughout. We've become a family. At this point, we are a family. That's what we call each other.
Yep.
If
Hmm.
you're on our newsletters or if you see any of our posts and stuff, I call, everybody our secured
Hmm.
family. So that's the kind of feel that we want you to have. Not to cross a boundary in a way where where it begins to feel too informal for the nature of the work, but where at least you can feel like somebody understands your overall picture and can support you with that.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Margaret, what is kind of like a healthy financial practice look like? Like, what is a practice that does reach out to a professional, or they do have in mind, like, hey, like I need to do the right things, quote unquote. What do they do differently than those practices that are not, say, in tune with what they should be doing?
So I talked about earlier when people usually reach out to us. So it's usually they get a notice, they that's 90% of it. They get a notice
Mhm.
or it's time to file taxes and they're like, I don't even know what to do. A healthy practice really builds systems and has a workflow in the financial space before things feel urgent.
Mm.
I think that urgency also heightens the fear that we spoke about as well.
Mhm.
So when your taxes are not really a mystery, when you have these separate accounts that you should have, when there's intentional pay, you have some sort of bookkeeping going on,
Mhm.
that consistency really keeps you healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of leads me to my next question is with clinicians being so busy, right? Like they're busy, they're working
Mhm.
with clients, they got CEUs, they got their own lives they're
Mhm.
living. How
Mhm.
many do you find that are still stressed about money, even though they're making like, I mean, let's be real, right? Clinicians aren't making $20 an hour. They're making quite a bit more than that per client. Um,
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
you find that a lot of them are stressed about money even before the tax bill comes? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yes. So, when I kind of gave my introduction, I said we do bookkeeping, taxes, and advisory. Bookkeeping and taxes, I tell a therapist that they get that, they know what it is. Advisory
Mhm.
is kind of the thing they're like, what does that mean? So,
Mm,
cash flow management is what we primarily advise on
mm,
because just because you're making more money in your practice and more deposits are coming into the account, it doesn't mean that your flow of cash, what's coming in, what is due, what you have to
mhm.
pay, all of that is kind of aligned.
Yeah.
What I've noticed is a lot of therapists, as soon as something comes in, it's going out. There's no reserves. It's feels like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, even though the number might be really high. So it
Mm,
takes a lot of slowing down, really looking at the numbers, knowing what to look at, and
yeah.
developing a system so you're not always feeling like you have to spend everything that comes in the accounts.
So in some way, it sounds like money's coming in and they're seeing that account just kind of almost like an ATM machine, like an ATM is like, oh, I got
Yeah.
this much money. Let me just, this is how much I got to play and spend with.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And it might not even be that because most therapists are very responsible.
Mhm, mhm.
It's very responsible. But as your business grows, the demands and the expenses grow,
Yeah.
right? You
Mhm,
might need bigger insurance now because you have 20 people in your group practice, which is what I'm, hoping for all my group practice owners.
mhm. Yeah.
So that becomes more expensive. Payroll costs go up.
Mhm,
You really want to become specialized in a specific training. Well, EMDR trainings are expensive,
mhm.
so you have to budget for those things.
Absolutely. And what happens, like, what's the risk to a clinician when they treat their practice like that instead of with a system?
So there's a saying that I've heard recently just in the financial space where most people are two paychecks away from being homeless.
Mm,
The reality of that is that it's more like one when you have a business and that is your sole source of income because economy factors, COVID, things of
mhm,
that nature can come out of nowhere. And if that's your sole source of income and you're not prepared for the unexpected, well, unfortunately, most people have to close their doors or reduce or, go back to also contracting out with another firm and pivoting.
mhm.
So paying attention to the numbers and being more cognizant of what's coming in and going out helps you avoid those things when it comes up because
Wow.
they
Yeah.
will.
Yeah. Have you seen that happen often with the
Yeah,
people you work
so
with?
we started in 2020. So between 2020 and 2021 with COVID,
Mhm,
took a lot of really sitting down and looking at numbers with therapists because things were not flowing as they should. Even
mm,
with the most recent shutdown, believe it or not, that caused some delays in bills and claims being paid and things of that nature too. Um, People who had practices that were only self-paid saw clients who were now like, I can't afford therapy. This is not, I need to pay for groceries. My kids are home, da 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 da
mhm.
da. So we're seeing more cancellations.
Yeah.
Um, so all of that really, plays a part.
Oh, yeah, that's gotta be tough for a clinician to have their own little baby, right? Like their business, and then they're like, "Well, I gotta close the doors and then pivot." I mean, I'm sure
Hmm.
that leads to like super quick burnout, right? Like that starts
Yeah.
setting in real fast.
Yeah.
Mhm. Margaret, what's one shift, like one small shift even that clinicians can make now that improves cash flow stability?
Paying yourself intentionally. Now, I didn't say have to pay yourself a certain amount. You don't have to pay yourself, even specifically on a certain cadence, because I understand that, business needs and seasons change, but
Mhm.
just the act of paying yourself and paying yourself intentionally, getting into that mindset of remembering to pay yourself first. It really forces awareness. You're forced to really look at the numbers so you can figure out, okay, well, I know I need to pay myself, but what am I paying myself? And discipline everywhere else when it comes down to the numbers and that part of running a practice.
Yeah. So when you say paying yourself intentionally, it means like paying yourself almost like what I'm hearing is like paying yourself a good amount that is responsible. Is that kind of like a fair way of understanding
And
it?
even just making it even more basic than that, paying yourself. Because a lot of clinicians, they're trying to grow the business, they want to invest in this, they want to invest in that, and or they have different softwares they want to use, whatever the case may be, and we're pulling from our pay to do that. So just paying yourself like consistently, whatever that looks like, however that looks like for your the act, gets you in the mindset of looking at the numbers.
Yeah. So when I hear you say paying yourself, you mean like having a payment just for you or just for the clinician, and then having some extra money for all the other things that you're talking about. Is that
correct?
got
Absolutely
it?
right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so is that something that like if a clinician showed up and like the numbers are all jumbled and it's kind of like one big account for everything, do you help them organize like different pots of money if that's the right? And like
Absolutely.
say, hey, this is going to be what you're going to pay yourself. No mess with that, right? And then you organize everything.
Absolutely. So that is what our cash flow advisory exactly does specifically. Prerequisites to cash flow management is you have to have taxes filed, you have to have a business set up, you have to have bookkeeping done, all those unsexy things. But the nice, cool part about the finances is now looking at, okay, I'm reaping something from putting in this hard work. I have plans, I want to do this, how can I make it happen? We can start laying out a story now that we have those basics done.
Wow. Yeah. It sounds like as I'm hearing you say that, I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, how would I feel if I was going through that? And I'm like, yeah, I'd feel like I had like some clarity, right? Like I know my stuff's organized and I know what the plan is going forward. Right. And I think that's really, really cool. Margaret, when you see clinicians come in through the door and they like consult with y'all and then y'all kind of score away some things and things are set up properly, what usually changes first for them?
Decision clarity. So you spoke about clarity and that's what it feels like. And that's great. That means I'm getting my message across. That's like number one thing on our website, like clarity. That is the one thing. But to hone in even more on that, decision clarity. A lot of times we have ideas in our head, and even this is any business owner, right? You have ideas, you have aspirations. There's a reason why you decided to get in business, whether it's time freedom or you want flexibility of, some sort of whatever the case may be. You can start to make decisions because you know what the numbers are. So if you know that you're about to, or you're looking to hire, right? Well, the numbers, you can possibly say, all right, well, we'll start putting out the job posting maybe in a month because we know we have this going on. Like it just makes it easier to figure out what's your next step when you know the numbers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Having that clarity and being able to make informed decisions about what's going on, right? So if you're looking at like some software that you want to invest in, it's like, well, how much do I have in my software fund, right? Like, oh yeah, I can afford that or not. Margaret, I'd like to shift gears a little bit and ask you a question that I've seen on some Facebook groups, and that is this thing with like 1099s versus employees. It seems like that topic comes up quite a bit, and then like there's a lot of debate on what is a employee, what is a contractor. There's like this weird mix-up, and there seems to be so many different ideas out there, and I'm hoping that you can kind of give us a little more of that clarity and guidance on what that is and how can people get in trouble if they're not, planning properly for those individuals.
Yeah. So quick and short answer. The more control that you have over this person that's working with you, if you are telling them when to show up, when to leave, how many people they need to see, what they need to wear, what their schedule will be like, they need to go through certain trainings, they have to attend admin meetings on Mondays at 2:30. The more control you have over them, more likely they are an employee, a W-2 employee, which requires you to be set up with the state to collect the applicable taxes, making sure that payroll deductions are being taken. There's just more things, unfortunately, that you have to do to get them set up. But that is the proper classification. Now, if your sole thing is telling them, hey, I have this practice, you can use our practice name. You source your own clients. We just ask that, per our contract to keep us in good standing, you see 20 clients a week, and that's all you say to them, then you can get away with them being a 1099.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is that something that you can kind of help guide the clinicians if they come speak with with you all? Like, is that one of the things that you ask them about if they have contractors?
Oh, 1,000%. So one of our clients, unfortunately, misclassified. So she had a group practice and had about 10 therapists, and they were all 1099s. Well, state of New York, which they tend to do. They tend to be, specifically the state of New York, very thorough. They hit her with a $17,000 workers' comp fine.
Yikes.
And she was like, Margaret, what is this? What? 17,000 for what? I don't understand. I have contractors. Well, when we investigated further, we found out that, one, unfortunately, one of the therapists kind of rat her out, but which is a risk that you run, you know. But outside of that, they were also kind of looking at, because of the volume that the practice was doing, it triggered them to investigate. And they realized by looking at the website, they realized by looking at postings, they realized just by looking at the inner workings of the business that these people were not 1099s. They were employees because they were required to work a certain time and all of the other classifications that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. So did she end up like paying that?
No.
Oh,
no.
nice.
She ended up, I referred her to an employer attorney who helped fight the case, because it was literal, like, I didn't know. And her and I had just started working together as well. So I didn't even have time to go through a full investigation and tell her, hey, these are not employees. Let's make the switch, yada, yada, yada. They hit her with that pretty fast. So we got an attorney involved, and she was able to reduce it. I would say she maybe saved $7,000 though, because attorneys cost too. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's wild. Does it vary by state? Like what a 1099 is, like what classifies a 1099 and versus an employee, or is it all pretty much the same?
No, it's all the same. And so that's actually what I do with people when when we're going through and figuring out, are you classifying these people correctly? We will actually go to the IRS website. I tell y'all all the time, I stalk the IRS website, because I feel like we're better to get the information than the source, right? So we'll actually pull up, they have a publication, and anybody can go on irs.gov and look this up. There's a publication that is pretty specific about who's an employee and who's a contractor. It asks questions for you to identify that, and we will go through that and make sure that people are classified correctly.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. So it's basically, what I'm getting is, it doesn't matter what state you're in. The classification criteria is the same, pretty much.
Yes.
And if somebody goes to you for consultation, you have a really good idea of what that is, so that you can like let the clinician know, like, hey, this is sketchy. You might want to adjust some things here.
Yeah, and we partner with a HR consultant as well. So usually, if I'm giving any advice in this realm, because it's on the skirt of financial and legal advice. It's one of those things that's kind of like, it affects finances, but the premise is legal. So I usually always consult her and say, hey, Yashika, this is my findings from the client. Just kind of back me up here. And so bringing in that extra resource and that partnership kind of helps us to make sure that we're dotting I's, crossing T's.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you had to bring this topic up? Like, does it come up a lot in your conversations with clinicians? Like, is this a pretty big thing?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, dang. Yeah. Wow.
And it's from every angle, because a lot of, so somebody just comes to us, they're just a therapist that has to do their taxes. When we kind of ask questions to identify missed deductions and stuff, I will realize that they shouldn't have gotten a 1099. They really should have been a W-2. And so that awareness can sometimes cause an issue, because obviously it's like, okay, how do I approach my employer about this?
Right.
But I've had some successful cases as well, because a lot of times, like I said, I mean, therapists are licensed professionals. You go to school, you are, I would say 100% of the time trying to work in the green, right? Ethical and all of that. So it's usually, I just really didn't know. And I've had that happen where employee had a decent enough relationship, she felt like, with her employee to say, hey, I had a consultation with Margaret. I don't think that I should be a 1099. And they turned around and booked a consultation with me. I explained why, and we were able to sort it out. They didn't get any fines. They were able to move them over. They understood why they needed to move them over, and we got everybody on the right track. So sometimes it's just a lack of knowing, it's a lack of you just don't know, and you think you need to hire the person. So the quickest thing and the easiest thing is to throw them as a 1099 and move forward.
Right. Is it tough to adjust once like that's been found out? Like, hey, you might want to be, you're actually not really 1099, you're like sounding more like an employee. Like, is it hard to pivot for a practice owner?
No, it's a paperwork. It is 1,000% just paperwork, and waiting on the state agencies to approve you to take out taxes and yada yada, and setting up with a payroll provider. But it's an ABC process.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Margaret, what does it look like when a private practice or a group practice is actually structured the right way from the start?
Those are my favorite. No, really, it looks like clear clear everything, really.
Mhm.
It's clear roles, right? So again, who's a 1099? Who's a W-2? Who's the owner? Who's admin? Okay. Clear pay structures, right? For the most part, what I've noticed is therapists don't have a lot of expenses. And when I say a lot, I mean not like the amounts, but quantity. They don't have a lot. It's pretty much the same type of things. So there's a lot of room for profit, big profit there. So just kind of understanding that, like clean books, compliance is, on par. We're meeting those deadlines. That's what that type of firm looks like.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm really happy that you said that there is some margin there for the clinician, because it gives us hope. We hear a lot of discussions about how, where it's like a race to the bottom, like people are starting to get saturated, or the markets are starting to get saturated. And there's like talk about, like prices going down or the fee going down. So it's kind of cool to hear you say that there's plenty of wiggle room in there. Yeah, there's
yeah,
that's awesome.
There's definitely hope that I will say in general right now, as we're doing this recording, economy is just not the best, right? So everybody's feeling it across the board. I have a construction client who's feeling it just as much as my therapist client, just as much as any other practice that we work with. But that's why you have to ride the waves and be, and plan. It's kind of hard. It sounds like, how can you plan for the unexpected? But you kind of can in finances. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, absolutely. Margaret, I like to go back to the DIYers. So like, let's say a clinician's trying to save some money and they're bootstrapping it and they're trying to save. And so they're trying to do everything as affordably as possible. At what income level does a DIY stop being empowering and it starts being risky?
I'm gonna give you a word answer and a number answer, right? So words to answer that is when your decisions start impacting others. You start growing and you need support and you're trying to figure all that out and you're trying to do it yourself. That's a recipe for disaster, because you're doing too much at one time, right? How can we all juggle all of that specifically? Numbers wise, what we have noticed is if your practice is bringing in $65,000 a year or more, you probably want to come out of that DIY, because that means that either you're fully booked. So what time do you have left as far as balance goes to really look at these numbers? Or your group practice is making money, but it's not optimizing. So.
Yeah, that's interesting, because sometimes it's not about like avoiding the risk, but it's about optimizing, right? Like that's another benefit that could be getting missed out on. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So 65,000, what, in revenue, or is it income? Like
in revenue, like literally money coming into the bank account. So without anything else, like 65,000 is hitting your account from services that you provide. It's time to speak to a professional. And you may not need full blown, we're doing everything for you. You just might need a consultation to look at what you're doing, how you're doing it, and to give you a plan. You might be very capable of what we say call running the play, right? You might be very capable to do what you need to do and do it consistently, but you might just need a better plan.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's worth the investment to at least get a look over from a professional.
Yes.
Like you don't need a whole robust like program or anything. Just be like a quick 1 hour, 2 hour thing.
Correct.
Where they look it over and they're like, hey, you're good to go. Keep doing what you're doing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Check in next year or a couple years from now, whatever. You said that at 65,000, it's probably a good time to talk to a professional. What makes a financial professional? Like, what are some things that clinicians should look for when they're looking to get in contact with a professional in your field?
So there's 3 different designations in the tax space specifically. So there is an annual filing season program that anybody who has a registered number with the IRS to prepare taxes can go through. It's a course, 18 hours of continuing education that we have to do, that we get all the tax law updates from the IRS. At a bare minimum, whoever is doing your taxes should be a participant in that. You can look them up. There's a preparer directory on the IRS website. Look up, type in their name and their business zip code and find them and make sure that they at least participate in that. The truth is, for taxes specifically, there's one barrier to entry. You have to, two. You have to go through a semi background check and you have to apply to get a number to prepare taxes. But that's it. If you do those 2 things, you are good to go in the IRS's eyes to prepare taxes. However, you'll want somebody that's going to take the initiative, do a little bit more than just fill out an application to do taxes. You want them to know the tax law. So that is a good indication that they've taken this industry serious. Second designation is a CPA. Now, Misconception all the time that I get is that only CPAs can do taxes, or that they're the best for taxes.
Yeah.
And the reality is CPAs are only licensed in their state. So, and most of the time CPAs do more of financial statements and auditing and those type of things. There's a lot of CPAs who never touch taxes. So be careful there. Make sure if you're reaching out to a CPA, you're just asking them, hey, do you actually specialize in taxes? Because there's so many other things they can specialize in. Last designation, which is the best designation in my opinion, is an enrolled agent. Enrolled agent has the highest designation with the IRS. So they go through a 3-part series of exams: individual law, business law, just regular, law. You have to go through this whole process. And once you pass that, you become an EA. EAs are allowed to represent and help and prepare taxes for clients in all states. So that designation gives them that flexibility too.
So is EA like the highest level you can go?
Yes.
Wow. Like how long does it get? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, there's tax attorneys too, right? But most tax attorneys double as like an EA or a CPA too, just because like when you're going through the course itself, if you don't specifically seek out taxation and tax laws, the programs are not designed to only talk about that. So you have to seek out somebody who's like really studying tax law.
Right. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of like the therapy field, right? Like school prepares you broadly, but if you really want to focus in on one thing like CBT or whatever, you really got to take some of those like specialty courses.
Correct.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So like you mentioned looking them up. So where can clinicians look up the person that they're going to go work with to make sure that they're credentialed and they have the right paperwork?
Yeah. So irs.gov, my favorite place. And in the search bar, you can put in preparer directory and it'll pop it up. And all you need to know is their first and last name and the zip code that they registered with, which for most of us will usually be our business address, and you should be able to look them up there and it'll say their name. It'll say, what credential they have, if they're an annual filing season participant, if they're an EA, if they're an attorney, if they're a CPA, it'll tell you right there and then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy, Margaret, because when I think of like taxes and all that, I'm like, man, it just seems so complex. And I mean, there's a reason why it's kind of so out there. But in your opinion, why is there like no single answer when it comes to taxes and finances?
Because it's just not a single answer type of field, like not one therapy fits all. So not one finance fits all too, because it's really dependent on your overall picture, what your overall goal is. I meet some therapists who are like, I just want to work at a practice, get my 40 hours in, and that's it. If that's your overall thing, I'm not going to talk to you about hiring somebody or going out on your own, or because that's not what you want to do. Likewise, I have people who are like, I want to work for myself and have a private practice. But I don't ever want to hire somebody. Okay, well, I'm going to spend so much time talking to you about who are you billing? What are the contract rates with them? How can we maximize that? That's what we're going to talk about, So the conversations are different when your goals are different, and everybody's goal is different.
Yeah. So it sounds like when you sit down with the client, you're actually like personalizing the plan for them based on what they want to do, what they want to accomplish, right? Yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's really cool. Margaret, real quick, what about, I've heard about clinicians wanting to do this, and it's kind of like a trend lately in our field, and that is like they want to travel. Like they want to do like the overseas. I'm in Costa Rica for 6 months and like I'm hosting a retreat, or they're seeing clients remotely from a foreign country. Is that treated differently than like regular income that is made in the US?
That's another one of those it depends situation.
Gotcha. Schedule consultation.
Yes, the main answer, and so let's talk about what it depends on. It depends on how long you're there. Mainly, that's the main thing. Depends on how long you plan on being there, what your reason for being there is, and those are all what we call substantiation, how you prove things. So those are the questions I would ask to give a clear answer to someone.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. What's a good mindset shift that clinicians need to make? Because we mentioned the word fear, right? And it is scary to hear IRS or to get letters or to be audited. It's like, oh God. What's a mindset shift that helps clinicians kind of get over that fear and actually start the planning process?
Yeah. So taxes is really just a system. A lot of us, again, when we hear IRS and we hear taxes, it's like punishment, it's like, I don't want to pay those people. I don't want to deal with that. There's a lot of emotion around it. But if you look at it as a system that you have to manage, then it becomes easier to say, okay, well then let me get with somebody who knows the system so we can manage it and we can go through it. And, we can do that. Also planning. right? Planning replaces panic,
Yeah,
period.
absolutely.
We avoid that because the plan might not look how you want it to look. But to me, if you have the goal and we know how to get you to the goal and we can create the plan, then you're golden. You just have to do what the plan says.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, is like kind of accepting that it is a thing, right? And
Yeah.
instead of like resisting it with fear, like embrace it, lean into a professional like yourself, so that we can start managing it and optimizing like our cash flow, make more
Yeah.
money. That's exactly what I think we all want.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Margaret, so why should clinicians work with you? Like, what makes your company like really well suited to help clinicians going forward? Now, with all the changes going on and that will keep happening, what is it about your business that clinicians should know about?
So clinicians specifically should know that we actually have a clinician on our team. So when I am getting information, how I even know about industry things that are happening, I'm getting it straight from a clinician who also decided that she wanted to learn about taxes. Interesting enough, Sadia is our clinician on our team over at Secured Financials. She is right there in the middle with that bob cut.
Mhm.
Sadia, she owns a group practice. She's licensed in New York and Florida, so she also knows about being multi-state and all of that. Her insight really helps us help you, because I come from strictly finances
Mhm.
and I eat sleep breathe that, but she learns that and knows also how the business works, and we can collaborate to really help clinicians all over.
Oh, that's really cool. Do you see clinicians kind of feel more comfortable knowing that there's a group practice owner in on your staff?
For sure, for sure. They'll always say, "Hey, ask Sadia this for me,"
Yeah.
and we loop her in, and it's
Mhm.
a good time. She's very dedicated to seeing people grow and
Mhm.
succeed, so it works out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. Margaret, how can people find you? How can people find your business? How can they connect and maybe schedule a discovery call, or maybe even partner up more fully?
Yeah, so easiest way is at our website, www.secured with a D, financials with an S.net. And we're at Secured Financials on pretty much all platforms. TikTok and Instagram, we give a lot of like tidbits about things to be aware of, reminding you of deadlines, things of that nature. So helps you get some trickle of information there. Facebook is really where I dive deep in a lot more. So you can search for me, Margaret Montague. You can friend me on Facebook. It's pretty open, because I give a lot of information there, or follow our page to see updates there too.
Awesome, Margaret. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And we'll
Of
stay in touch.
course.
All right. Take
Thanks.
care.